I last week I did an ice session on your progression, D zone scrimmage, 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3. And I'm trying to convince them because all the skills coaches all their coaching is offense, create offense, create offense.
Hmm.
And yet you play without the puck so much, you have to get it back to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting it and defending, to me, precedes possessing.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I have a U13 coach, the staff I did it with really appreciated it, but it's a little bit more difficult sell as you move up the ladder because, and like you've experienced watching, um, you know, you're coaching in the NHL, you've seen the offensive focus.
Mm-hmm.
And it must have been difficult for you to pay attention to the defensive details that we learn to appreciate more than anybody else.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I should tell you a little thing, a little, that's a tip or what it is, but um, when when I first learned the importance of defending was on many occasions when we had the puck offensively and we uh, were dispossessed by a good checker or a bad decision, whatever it was. And those moments we were so vulnerable because we had committed to attack and suddenly everything changed and we were without the puck and we had to defend. So it made me realize way back in my career that if you can dispossess a team from the puck in some of those key moments where they're playing with some risk, that is where you really get your best offensive opportunities from. So I've always really stressed with our guys, well, whether you're talking defense to offense or offense to defense, then the number one thing is anticipation. If you can see it's happening a second or two before it actually happens, that allows you to start your transition to whether it's defense to offense or offense to defense. And that's what the game is. The game is momentary, reoccurring momentary transitions in roles from attacking to defending. So, I learned a long time ago that we got a lot of our great scoring chances because we were really good defensively. We wouldn't have the puck as much as maybe the Soviets and the Czechs and the Swedes, but we got them in situations where we really worked at defending our blue line, for example, because we knew that that was a moment when teams get really vulnerable. Around your net, sometimes they attack with too much zest and get caught deep. So, I learned a long time ago that number one thing is good defense and defending at critical moments where the puck is up for grabs a little bit in terms of possession. That's what it's all about. And it all comes down to that word we always hear about in the game is anticipation. The best players are always still a couple of seconds ahead of everybody else in seeing what's going to happen. Not what's happening, what's going to happen. And, I've always, that's why I've always tried to get guys that are, I've really found it's more fun coaching smart guys than it is dumb guys. So, and that's one of our jobs. Our jobs is to, I've always, and you did it very well, Wally, when you coached. I'm sure Tom does it. I'm positive does it. Understanding of the game. I'm going back to what I talked about before. That's the number one thing I've learned in my coaching is if people understand what you're trying to do, they're going to execute it better. It doesn't mean they're all going to be great at it, but they're going to be better at it. So, and that's the fun in coaching. I always found that the most fun was I still watch games with a pad and paper and write things down. I still look for those things. So, yeah, it's a great game. And I should tell these guys a story about you, Wally, with the national team. Wally would come out with this, maybe every week. I think it was Tuesday mornings. Wally would come out, and we'd always give Wally at least 15 or 20 minutes to work on some individual skill with the whole team. But I remember you did a thing on skating, defensive skating. And you think it's me. It's actually yours, that defensive skating. And it was amazing when it was all said and done. I remember talking to a guy named Paul Cavallini, who was a great big defenseman, played about 10 years in the NHL. And Cav was big, a little bit overweight at those times. We tried to really push his fitness. He had slow feet. And you worked with him on checking, just skating specifics and checking situations. And I remember he came to me and he worked on those things. And he came to me and said, I'm not faster, but I skate smarter. I know how to skate and sometimes I know what I should be doing in terms of my positioning and my skates and this and my edges and all that stuff. And so I learned a long time ago, Wally, having people like yourself, very valuable. And that's what coaching staffs are. I mean, you are a staff. You've got a number of different people with different skill sets, different approaches to the game, different view of the game. And that's what makes the game so exciting for a coach, is to be able to draw upon those resources,
Well, Dave, were it not for that opportunity to work with those players, I wouldn't have appreciated it as much as I do now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to encourage it with young players and the coaches of the young players, because I valued the result. And I remember when you were coaching the Flames, you had me do some skill work, similar work with their defense.
Yep.
And I remember I had about 20 minutes at one end, and I did the same thing I did with Paul. And after one of he was a coach, played in the NHL, came down. He was a defenseman. I just wish I could remember the name off the top of my head. He was blown away because nobody's taught those things.
Yeah.
And nobody's learned to teach those things because they never had to.
Right.
It was all trial and error.
Yeah.
So when we were faced with the adversity and the challenge of playing against players that were so much faster, agile, move the puck quicker, we had to learn how to skate.
Yeah.
And I often tell the story when you asked me to go over to the first Spengler Cup with George Kingston and Andy Murray.
Yeah.
The first ice time, George did a double regroup drill on the European Ocean ice, and they couldn't do it. The defenseman could not create gaps, complete passes. Forwards had trouble timing, but the defenseman had so much trouble double regrouping, skating forwards and backwards. And I asked George, and thank goodness George was open-minded. I said, George, just give me 10 or 15 minutes with the D. And we worked on transition skating, deliberate, progressive, mundane, but important stuff. And we went back to the drill. They did the drill. And the players that Paul Henry had selected, we had 10 college players, 5 from the US, Canadians, 5 from Canada, and then the others were European pros. Right. And I think you told me going over, don't be too wishful about results. But that team won the gold medal of the Spengler Cup, which was, really an overachievement and somewhat of a shock. But that aspect of being able to play the European game on big ice and knowing how important those little details are, that's one small piece of contributing to it. So we've learned a lot, and I just think all we want to do is make sure it gets passed on to coaches that are going to continue. So the benefactors, it's going to be the kids. So
I think, Wally, I guess the last thing, if you're getting ready to draw this thing to a conclusion, but I still, in my coaching career, the one outcome that I look back with some regret was I was at a young age, I think technically pretty good and tactically okay. But I don't think I had as much fun coaching as I should have had. I did at the University of Saskatchewan. When I got coaching after that for a few years there, I got way too focused, I think, and I didn't realize the importance of creating an enjoyment. We had a great work environment, and the guys realized they were getting better. And so they put up with me because of that. But I wish I'd been better with some of my players, better interpersonal with some of my players at sometimes. I was too focused on just them as players, not as people. And I think that's the biggest regret I have in my career. And after that, I started to change. When the best thing that ever happened to me was the chance to be an assistant coach. I'd never been an assistant coach. And I got in the NHL to be in that role. And I thought, God, this is great. I can talk to the players, have fun with them, and, enjoy them and work with them and one-on-one. And it was terrific. So, I really think that's important for coaches at any level to make sure you're having fun. Because if you're having fun, you'll do a better job. You'll be more committed to it. And you'll help your kids get better. And whether they make it or not, that won't be you'll deal with that because you're seeing a bigger picture. And I really think that was the one thing that I learned. I wish 15 years earlier, when I coached at U of S, I had great time with my players. But then I got this reputation being so good technically and tactically that became my identity. And that was a mistake for me. I'm glad I snapped back into it and got a chance to realize the basics of coaching and working with kids at any sport is enjoyment for you and for them. And so let's always take that message. You always done that, Cozy, and I like that so much. I've always felt that you were a voice in the dark with Hockey Canada. I remember when I left, we had great conversations with you about, like working with people, proper methods to work with young players. And I felt you were sometimes talking to people in Hockey Canada and they weren't listening. They were so interested in other aspects of working with kids, technical, tactical. And I felt you were the first guy to kind of make a lot of us start to think, whoa, let's hang on here. So Wally, you've done a great job.